It's a farce. That is farcical that he got the 2 weeks for that. He's out. He needs surgery. And 2 weeks. It's like lazy, I reckon.
G'day everyone, welcome to the Continuous Call Team Daily Podcast. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. My name's Adam Hawes and joining me today is sports editor of the Sydney Morning Herald, Neil Breen. Hello, Breeny.
Hello, Horsey. Mate, I'm wounded today. I'm wounded.
Oh, tell us.
Whatever I do in rugby league tipping, it's the wrong thing. And I just want to rule West Tigers. How could the West Tigers lose to St George Illawarra when they're at home on a Sunday afternoon?
I tipped them as well, mate. I tipped them as well, so...
Oh, my God.
What were we thinking, mate? They've lost 7 in a row, so we can't be surprised.
I know. The funny thing is, it's all about, how good are the Dragons going? They'd won 3 of 20, the Dragons, and they're suddenly they're superstars. Anyway, they've been a lot better in the second half of the year than they were in the first half of the year, so well done to Dean Young and everyone involved.
2 in a row, go Dragons. So we'll get back to the Tigers a little bit later. Let's kick it off with the Broncos. They were, this time last year, they were on this incredible roll, the Broncos. Reece Walsh was turning heads left, right and centre, went all the way to win the Premiership. Now, they're actually a chance of being handed the wooden spoon by the Dragons if the results go against the Broncos, because they are just pathetic at the moment. A 40-6 loss to the Warriors on the weekend saw their coach Michael Maguire finally unload on his players in public. It's about 10 weeks overdue, in my opinion. What did you make of it?
Yeah, well, I think he just finally lost patience, because the whole narrative this year has been about we're together, this and that, and every time anyone speaks, they have to defend the coach, Michael Maguire. But there's no doubt, and Peter Bedell and Travis Main in the Courier Mail, Brisbane's #1 newspaper on Saturday, had a really good read in there, just sort of analysing the whole season and where it all went wrong. The fact is, they did climb the top of the mountain last year. Horsey, it was a famous victory. They hadn't won a premiership in 19 seasons. It was a magnificent performance. And I suppose people like myself thought that they'd do the same thing this year. I wasn't sure they'd win it again. I tipped as grand finalists. I tipped Penrith and the Broncos, and then Penrith to win it all. But the Broncos, it's inexcusable. So what have they lost? 12 of the last 13 matches?
Yeah.
You can't have that much talent at your disposal, that many resources at your disposal, and be running second last in the Premiership. It's almost an impossible task what they've done. But I just think it's exposed the frailties in the joint, that they do have a magnificent side that make the grand final in 23, win the lot in 25, but in between times, they've missed the finals. There's not that Roosters, Panthers, Melbourne consistency that the big clubs that have so much more firepower in terms of support, corporate support and structure and everything around their football squads, that they should be such yo-yos. And I think the club needs to be honest. Like, the club's always, thinking the media said this or something. It's about your relationship with your fans. And you've got a big fan base, Broncos, and you owe them better than to every time there's some PR spin smother around what's going on. They owe their fans more than not being honest with them, and they aren't being honest with them. They've never dealt with Payne Haas leaving. Like when he finally spoke, it was 70 seconds of Payne Haas saying, I'm not leaving because of Madge. It's all about Madge. Well, forget about Madge. Tell us about the whole club and why do these players not want to play?
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. It still doesn't make any sense to me as to why Payne Haas
No
would
sense.
leave.
Makes no sense.
Just months after winning a premiership. It's just remarkable. They've never recovered from that point, Breeny. And like you say, there's no excuses for this. So they've got so much talent in that roster, even allowing for injuries, to be second last. Yeah. To be second last on the ladder. We just mentioned the Dragons have won 2 in a row. Broncos have won 1 out of the last 13. It's the worst premiership defence since West in 1953.
Yeah. Shane Flanagan lost his job when he'd lost 11 in a row with the Dragons. They lost the last 4 games last year, then the first 7 this year he lost it. Well, the Broncos are as bad as they were, 12 of 13. Look, at the end of the day, last week, so Adam Reynolds wasn't playing, and Maguire spoke about it being a calf, and then Adam Reynolds said it wasn't a calf, and then Adam Reynolds had to come out and go, I was taken out of context. I love Madge. It's like, oh my God, cut it with the I love Madge stuff. The fact is, you're not on the same page. Ben Hunt wasn't on the same page a few weeks ago with what was going on with him. something's gone shockingly wrong there, Horsey, and they can't wait for their season to end. Just bugger off.
I'll just put this to you, Breeny. Has Madge overcompensated? There's always been this talk that he's too hard in the players, he drives them too hard.
He might have.
Because, like we alluded to earlier, his press conferences have been rinse and repeat. After every loss, it's always, the boys are in there trying. I know what sort of team I've got in there. I've got belief in these guys. But finally on the weekend, I'll just give you some context here. So, Pat Carrigan was asked by journalists whether knowing they could no longer make the finals made it difficult to get motivated for each contest. Maguire jumped in before Carrigan could answer. He says, I reckon that's garbage. We're playing a team next week, the Raiders, who are in the same boat. The boys are playing for the Broncos. They've got a badge that they wear. So he's saying he's had enough of this mediocrity. He said that's not good enough out there, what we saw tonight. He's 100% right. I just think he's been too protective of his players. I think he's needed to fire a few rockets, and he hasn't done it until now.
And the club's been too protective of him. In all of the talk about what's going right and what's going wrong there. We're reading in the paper on the weekend all about this pre-season camp. They went on a 2-week camp to Toowoomba. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they went on an army boot camp at the end of it. And then they weren't happy with certain stuff, the players. And look, I just don't think they've been properly honest. And Madge hasn't been honest with us. And maybe on the weekend he finally was.
All right, yeah. So they are really battling, but we'll move on. NRL Judiciary, I want to talk about, from that game actually, Breeny, Reece Walsh, of course, more bad news for the Broncos. Yeah. He's gone for the rest of the year. He needs surgery on a syndesmosis, out for 8 weeks. Now, he did the injury in a tackle from Chance Nickel-Klukstar from the Warriors. To me, this is absolutely textbook hip drop tackle. Walsh had the ball, Klukstar trying to slow him down, put all his weight on the back of Reece's legs. It was just, you won't see a better example of a hip drop tackle. He can get away with a 2-week suspension. I think that's a joke, 2 weeks. I think it should be at least 4 weeks if we want to be fair dinkum about getting this hip drop tackle out of the game.
The week before, Horsey, Cam Munster got a week. Then by the end of the day, on Sunday, or Saturday, whatever day it was reduced to a fine, because the player he committed the offence on wasn't injured, and so the judiciary said, hang on, he wasn't injured, so that's okay. He's not out for a week anymore, right? So Cam Munster's good to go this week when the Storm play the Roosters. Last weekend, the charge sheet came out, or yesterday, at lunchtime, and Chance Nickel-Klukstar, there it is, 2 weeks with an early plea, right? By the end of the day, we've got the scan, and he's got a high-grade syndesmosis. He's got to see the surgeon, then have surgery, and he's going to be out for 8 weeks, which rules him out of the World Cup. Where's the judiciary or the match review committee going, hang on, let's make it 4? Like, if they took an injury into account the week before, why can't they take it into account when the guy's actually worse injured than maybe they thought when he gave him 2 weeks? Horsey, it's a farce. That is farcical that he got the 2 weeks for that. This hip drop, they've gone on about it for years and years. We've got one of the stars of the game, a guy who's in contention for the World Cup, even though he hasn't been playing that well this year. The bloke was the best player on the planet 12 months ago. He got 8 weeks. He's out. He needs surgery, and 2 weeks. It's like lazy, I reckon.
I'll put this to you. What would it take to get 5 weeks for a hip drop tackle? You'd have to.
I don't know. You'd have to. I reckon you'd have to snap the bloke's
snap his legs off. Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, honestly. Like that, you could just see him actually drop his weight onto his legs. It was
100%.
Clear as day. The other one that had me very curious was the Stephen Crichton issue with referee Ashley Klein. And look, during the running of the game, Klein actually, he said, look, I think I've got in Stephen Crichton's way. But when you look in the replays, it's definitely Crichton going for Klein and actually bear hugging him. And Crichton's a smart player. He knows the rules. He knows that, hang on, if the referee's tangled up with me, we'll just have a scrum or something instead of a try, because he wasn't going to stop Lockie Hubner from that close range. What do you make of all that?
Well, I think he should have been suspended. He's intentionally run into the referee. And if he wanted to defend that he didn't run into the referee, then he could have defended his case at the judiciary. But a few seasons ago, Horsey, we got crazy about, if you touched a ref, you got a week, and, inadvertently knocking into a ref, players got suspended. That all went away because of the outcry. But the guilt was in Stephen Crichton's eyes. So Crichton at that point was slightly exposed on the try line. Souths are on the attack. He knows he's in trouble, right? He knows he's really going to struggle to stop this try from being scored. He spots Klein. You see him look. He spots Klein. Then he looks at him again and goes straight to him. You can see it clearly, the intent in his eyes. I have no idea how the match review committee hasn't been able to assess that and at least charged him. And if he wants to defend himself, he can defend himself. But it was indefensible, if you ask me. Clear cut.
I think the match review committee's just gone with Ashley Klein's comments in the game, which was, I got in his way. Which
Well, Klein doesn't really know.
Yeah, he might have thought that genuinely at the time, but on reflection, it's clear what happened there, that Crichton
Absolutely.
went in. And, mate, Bree, as you know, referees stand in the defensive line all the time in every match. And that's the first time I've ever seen a player move to their left or right and actually get tangled up with a referee.
Well, Crichton was actually moving away from where the attacker was going.
Exactly, yeah. And for me, the only proof you need is Jonathan Thurston in Nine's commentary, really strong. He came out and said that was a weak play. He didn't, he should have tried to make the tackle on Hubner. Instead, he went for the soft option, and he said that's the problem with Canterbury this year. They've taken the soft option, and that's what's
taken the soft option. I like it.
Yeah, West Tigers, we'll come back to them now. They gave themselves a chance yesterday, went close, 24-22 going down to the Dragons at CommBank Stadium, but not the greatest game we've ever seen, and certainly the crowd didn't generate a huge atmosphere. 9,773?
Yeah, now, okay, so the West Tigers, they've got Leichhardt. They play a few games there. They've got Campbelltown, so they're serving a couple of Masters there. Under Shane Richardson, they wanted to play at the Flasher Stadium. So they go to CommBank so they can get some corporate dollars. That they were playing some games at a core. And it's all about this corporate play, being able to put them in boxes and charge bigger money. And we know that clubs can make a lot of money from corporate. The problem with the West Tigers is their kind of membership base just hasn't bought it. Yesterday, before the game started, we were out there for the continuous call team. I couldn't believe how few people turned up. Now, okay, it was the West Tigers are low on the table. St George Illawarra Dragons are most likely going to win the Spoon, haven't had a great year. None of the Dragons fans travelled. You could see there was hardly any red and white in the crowd. But I thought that was a really poor crowd for the club, and I think it exposes a lot of their problems. And they're just a club that doesn't really stand for anything. They've got no answers. They try and find answers. They think they have the answers. They don't. And the fact is they've missed the finals 15 times in a row, and that's in a competition where half the teams make the finals. It's almost impossible to miss it 15 years in a row, but they've done it again.
Yeah, they sure have. And more questions for Benji Marshall through the week for the next 3 games. You're sticking with Jerome Luai.
They needed to end. They needed to end.
He just got steamrolled by Moses Sully, poor old Jerome, yesterday. Not a good look.
Oh, yeah.
And just finally, mate, Roosters, sitting on top of the table. We have a new leader, the Roosters, after that 12-6 win over the Panthers. They are the real deal. There can be no question about that now.
Yeah, okay, so there's the 82-12 win over the Cowboys. Okay, attack, tick. Right? We know they can attack. The next week against Canterbury, they're a bit lost. I think coming off that big win, travelling back from North Queensland, James Tedesco was out. They were a little bit lost and got away with a victory over the Bulldogs, 20-18. So in a premiership season, if you're going to go all the way, you're going to have some wins where you fall over the line where you think you might lose. So they win that game. Last week, everyone thought, with Tedesco out again, Penrith, okay, they haven't got Yeo, but, Penrith, after losing in New Zealand, should be able to right the wrong there, or a perceived wrong that they lost, you know what I mean, because they were so high-flying. But the Roosters defended their way to that win. They led in 6 points, so now we've got the defence ticked off.
Yep.
I think the Roosters should be the favourites for the premiership. They've looked fantastic. Typical of Trent Robinson, a slow build, no panic early, give Daly Cherry Evans time, and he's had the time now. The team's humming. Gee, they'll be hard to beat, Horsey.
Oh, for sure. And they ended that bogey. Of course, Penrith had won 12 of 13 against them. I think that's really important going into September. And also, I think we need to applaud them for getting Cody Ramsey in there after what he's gone through. They've given him a chance.
Amazing.
And he's been more than a fill-in, Brenny. He's been exceptional in his own right. Yeah.
Yeah, his career was over, and St George Illawarra Dragons didn't know what to do with him, and then the Roosters gave him a chance. And look at him, a bit like South with Matt Duffy, they gave him a chance, and then you end up getting a fair bit of first grade out of him. Well done.
I'm going to ask the question that on Sports Today: has a player ever come back from the Super League a better player than when he left? Because to me, Matt Duffy is the only one I can think of. He's such a better player than what he was when he left.
I know. I know. When he was at the Dogs, he was all over the shop, Matt Duffy. But
like a dog's breakfast. Yep. All
Maybe
right.
he's
Beautiful
grown
work, Brenny. Great work on the weekend, by the
Thanks,
way, as
Horsey.
well, on the Continuous Call team. We'll look forward to
Thank
your
you,
stuff in the Sydney Morning Herald. There is Neil Breen. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Continuous Call Team Daily podcast. You can catch us on Instagram and YouTube, and I will be back tomorrow.